This week in games, Nintendo sues America. There's a brand new Xbox, and EA continues laying off its workers. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. Players, welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 290. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello, my name is Connor Elliott.
Tis
That's
indeed.
Tavin Bothel.
Connor, how's your week been, friend?
Well, you know, it's been good.
Good.
Played Resident Evil 9 Requiem.
Hell yeah.
So-
Review out on the channel now, youtube.com/@2pennygames.
Went back into the sweet arms of Bloodborne, which we'll be playing for our game club this month. So
Yep.
all you Born fans, come on. play.
Soulsborne, yeah.
Yes.
Lot to talk about with that there, Bloodborne.
There is a
There's
lot to
gonna
talk
be-
about. But I
Connor,
will
I'm returning I'm bringing back a returning segment that I did for Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, in which it's time for some hard truths.
Oh, really?
Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like and subscribe so that you can hear those hard truths when it's time for that Bloodborne review.
Well,
Hard truths, Connor.
you know, it wasn't really hard because I already know what they are.
Oh, I'll show you something hard.
I know you will. You always
You don't
talk
know.
about it.
You don't know what the hard truth is.
Do I not?
No,
Oh, don't.
no.
Why is that? How do I not
Why
know?
would you? How could you know what the hard truth is?
I don't know.
What do you even think it is?
Maybe it's the sequence of how we do this recording thing we do. Maybe that's how I know.
No, that's not. No,
That was a
that was
different
that
hard
was a bit
truth.
for the piggy bank.
There's another
Yeah,
hard truth.
Yeah. Oh no. There's real hard truths about the Bloodborne, about the FromSoft.
Uh-huh,
There's
yes.
real hard truths.
Oh, I can't wait to hear them, Tavin. I'm so giddy at knowing what they are. But I will say, because you asked how my week was doing, and I knew you always ask this because you're basic and you do the same thing over and over again. No inspiration, quite frankly.
Jesus Christ.
But
Me, no inspiration.
yes, sorry, it's true.
All of this.
Huh?
All of this exists because of me.
Yeah, I helped a pencil. I put where that's going to be put. No, I didn't for that one. I did for not for that one. I did for this one. Pencil.
I don't even think you did.
That one over there. And, this
No,
one.
I think you only helped me with that one.
No,
Which
no.
isn't on camera. It's a mirror in the fucking living room.
Well, that might be true. That might not be true. Either way, I was watching a video of a guy recently who was doing basically the same kind of stuff we do, talking about things we're passionate about. We like video games a lot. I'm also passionate about anime, and this person was doing
Nerd.
classic breakdown of animations, right? But in the middle of it, he had to pause for a second, and he did a funny tongue-in-cheek joke about going back to it after the thing happened, but it was air siren alerts for bombing because he lives in Iran, right? And I was thinking in terms of, well, as we were doing this show, we don't sit here and go, wait a second, we got to be worried in our mind of a bomb falling on top of us.
Not a
because-
general worry, no.
Yeah, because we live in the country that's been actively, alongside Israel, perpetuating a violent amount of bombing against Iran, and people's lives are being upended. People who like video games just like us, just like fashion, like art, like anime, and the actions of our own country has
Of course.
really prevented people from just being able to enjoy life for reasons that are completely beyond the control of most people and generally are based off lies. Where unfortunately, even though I'm having a good week, the world's not in the best state right now, and unfortunately, it's probably only going to get worse, and the video game industry is no different from that. But I think it's just important to let everyone know that the war that's going on right now is incredibly unnecessarily violent. It's being ran by a bunch of effectively religious psychos or nationalistic psychos, and it's only going to get worse and come back on us as well in the form of possibly terror attacks or maybe even retaliation, as other people in the world have already experienced. And you know, this is a video game podcast. At this point, I have really doesn't.
Jesus, it started dark. I wasn't ready for this pivot, Connor. You gotta let me know.
And I was planning on saying something at some point, but it was just the fact that people who are doing the same things we like to do are unable to do so in peace and happiness because there's some evil people out there. And I mean, there's 400 people dead in Lebanon, for example, right now
it's
over
real
the course
bad.
of 2 weeks,
Yeah.
with hundreds of thousands displaced. And so, don't believe anything the U.S. government or the Israeli government saying. They're both evil. It's true.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now to find a way to
Segue, right?
find a way to segue back to
Got to get that oil, though.
there's a
you know?
new Xbox coming. That's
Yeah,
real exciting.
And that's not exciting at all either. It's, it's like great. And guess how much it's going to cost?
a lot.
A lot.
A lot. It's the memory loss, Connor. There's no GPUs going around.
Well,
Well,
you
all
gotta-
the AI
AI
is slowly choking us to death.
We gotta fund AI centers to decide who's getting killed by bombs, Tavin. It
Ladies
all
and-
works together.
Ladies and gentlemen, this show is normally not this morbid. I promise. It can get morbid, but normally not like this.
Not
Anyway.
mass human death. Not that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Two Penny Gamescast, where each week we dive into the nerdy news you need to know in order to elevate the conversation around games. We each come to you with 2 topics, 2 pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. You can watch the show live every Monday afternoon at twitch.tv/2pennygames, where you can put your own 2 cents in live as we record, much like Danny Maduro,
He's been a champion today. He's been in our corner.
who says Trump promised no wars. That's what he ran on. Everything is going up. Yeah, he was lying.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought?
Also,
Anyways.
side note, Ticketmaster is still being able to price gouge people because they settled out of court instead of breaking up a monopoly. So anybody that likes to just say, well, I like to go listen to music and avoid the rest of the things going on in the world, no, you can't.
And now a J. Cole ticket is $300, you know?
Maybe more
That's
now.
what I'm saying. No, it was 300. Well, I mean, it's like 160, but then, you do the fees, and the fees always double the price of each individual ticket. It's a fucking waste of, it sucks.
It does.
Anyways, not that I don't think J. Cole is worthy of $160 per ticket. He's clearly worth that, but it's the Ticketmaster price. Like, why am I paying double the price than what the ticket is set at?
For the privilege of paying Ticketmaster more money than you need to.
Literally, why are you getting all this money? Somebody's fucking us. If you can't catch us live, watch this episode on youtube.com/@2pennygames or mainstream podcast services every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Central Time. Of course, our goal here is to always elevate the conversation, so if you have your own 2 cents on a topic that we cover, don't cover, or just something about gaming culture you wish was better, drop those thoughts down in the comments below, and we will be back next week to reply to your own 2 pennies. And at this point, I would bring in a comment, but there weren't really anything. There really wasn't anything interesting this week in the comments. So now, is that because Tavin, instead of spending his Tuesday like he normally does, grinding away and making 12 TikToks and 4 breakouts, instead used it to play Resident Evil Requiem, and then kindly asked his 2 co-hosts to please cover him, and then Connor did one thing, and then Phil did no things. Is that why? Maybe.
Maybe
So,
it is.
I guess that means Tavin just can't take a break. No breaks for Tavin. No moments of relaxation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hey,
cool.
I will say,
At least we're being
you'll
honest
be
about it.
satisfied this week.
Will I?
You will.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
We'll see.
You've promised me this before, and
Oh,
then
I know.
done.
But see, the fact I'm being vague shows you I'm going to.
All right, sure.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get into our topics of discussion. And this first one is a bit more of just like a conversational thing, but we do have some hard facts that we got to get through first. So, Connor, a new Xbox has been announced lightly. We've got some details. You're about to read us off the details here. This is going to be your first penny, your first topic of the day. Please let me know what's going on with this new Xbox project.
Well, there was a short 8-second video, I didn't bother remembering the time, of Project Helix. Something called Project Helix. The next generation of Xbox.
I can't wait.
I cannot wait. Now, details are kind of sparse. We've had an idea, generally, of where Xbox is heading in the future. They've made deals recently with AMD to develop tech specifically for their hardware. They've, of course, really gone into AI. They've talked about wanting to make Xbox basically be like a Windows platform in general. So I have a couple of details that have come about in the time since it was released. It's important to note that on March 9th to the 13th is going to be GDC. And
GDC has started today.
Yes, and the new CEO of Xbox, Asha Sharma, saying that she's going to be there, and that's going to be the moment where we find out a lot of the nitty-gritty details of what's going on with the Project Helix. But for now, we have some different sources saying a couple of different things. YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead, a guy who's a very big, leaker guy, rumor guy. He seems to have a lot of connections within Xbox specifically. He was pretty accurate with the handheld. I think he was the one talking about the handheld, the Xbox, not the Ally. I think it was the one that was canceled. Point is, he also did some Halo news. He knows what he's talking about. And particularly, though, he's predicting that the price point is going to be about $1,000 to $1,200.
Jesus fuck.
Because it's about, he's predicting around $900 is what it's going to take to actually, I guess he was kind of unsure whether that's going to be how much it costs to make it, or if that's how much it's going to be cost to make a profit back. But they want more money because it's Microsoft. It's why they're trying to fire workers with AI. It's trimming the hedges, so to speak.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. And a lot of this is due to the fact of, again, going back to the GPU shortages we kind of talked about recently, going into AI data centers rather than personal computers, and now consoles as well. Personal computing is in a dark spot.
Yeah, it's not good right now.
It is not, and probably because they want them to be unable to buy these more efficiently priced personal PCs and buy their manufactured consoles like the Xbox Helix, whatever that's going to look like. And it's expected to come out in 2027. That's the predicted release date. That's according to both Windows Central's Jez Corden, big journalist who talks a lot of Xbox stuff, and the AMD CEO, Lisa Su, who is, basically jerking off how it's going to be so heavily integrated with AMD. We're going to be making so much technology. It's going to be so fucking nice. And he let slip that's, 2027's about the predicted release date. Further than that, though, it's effectively going to be a PC. It's going to be backwards compatible, so you're able to play a bunch of Xbox games, but also a lot of PC games. PlayStation, we've gotten some news that they're kind of pulling back from a lot of the putting their own games on PC. They're going to be a little bit more dogged in trying to keep their games on the PlayStation. Maybe it's emboldened by the fact that there's always those jokes of the PS6 and PS5 has got no games. It's got Demon Souls, and that's about it. So maybe they're going to see a return to...
Which is always a joke, but it's not true. It's not true.
They always would end up not just being on PlayStation, so kind of more true than not true.
Yeah, sure, they're also on PC, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in the truest form of exclusive, sure, but that's just not true. The PlayStation 5 has games.
It does have games. To a degree. How many Naughty Dog games on this one console? That's the avenue you use.
Not many.
Not how many was on the PS3?
4.
Four.
There were 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
PS4, like 3?
3? Yeah. 2 Uncharted's and a Last of Us, yeah.
Not there anymore.
Not there anymore. No. Yeah.
But yeah, that's last I was saying, it's basically going to be Windows. This is coming from both Sarah Bond and, once again, Jez Corden. Got that
Sarah
insider
Bond?
knowledge. Sarah Bond, yeah, back before where they were talking about the
gotcha.
next Xbox is going to be more about, she's out. For those of you that don't know, the original, what was her position again?
President
of Xbox, yeah. Now it is not the case anymore. But other than that, we're kind of pretty low on information. It's a lot of rumors with the expected GDC that's coming out this week today. That it will, along those next couple of days till the 13th, we'll see what's exactly Project Helix.
Right.
Got a little bit of ways before it's going to happen.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you can just go ahead and expect with this. Of course, the lauding of this is the most powerful new hardware and so forth. I think there is going to be a focus on cloud streaming, which is an avenue that Xbox has cared about for a very long time. Despite Xbox suddenly being under new leadership, clearly, these were things that were set in stone years ago. So Sharma has nothing to do with this, other than this is her first assignment. It's just to get this announcement through the door, right? But the announcement and all of its details have already been set in stone. What this device is a Phil Spencer led device, right?
We had gotten some patents recently of technology that allows you to basically have a ghost play through segments of your game.
Well, that was a PlayStation thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was a PlayStation. Fuck, I forgot. Mixed. That's why I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'll shoot myself after this, so I'll do that.
Which, again, is a patent that I don't believe exists. These companies just be patenting things.
They do. But that's why I was like, well, maybe now the Helix will have that.
Probably not, because they didn't get the patent in.
Another thing that I was seeing was that the Xbox Ally seemed to be kind of like a testing ground for Project Helix, and this is going to be like an upgraded version of that, like the fully realized version of that.
I think there will be a compatibility aspect to it. I would not be surprised if it's very much like a Switch of you pull out a screen from it and it works that way. I think that's the new hotness. I think that's what matters most.
Will it be a traditional box?
I think it'll be like a little bit of mix of both. Again, this is going to be a thing that I do expect it to be something that you can pick up and move and play in other places. I mean, it just depends on how hard in the Duffy they're going. For that price point, I would expect it to be more of a box, something that you plug in, and less of a movable, what is the word I'm looking for? Less mobile game station.
Yeah.
For that price, if that price is to be believed, which I also don't believe that. But I don't believe that people are willing to pay $1,000 for a console. in the traditional sense, mainstream sense of what people view consoles and technology as. Like, I don't believe people are willing to pay for that. And for a long time in this industry, it wasn't until like the PS4 generation where consoles were sold at a loss. Like, it cost them more to make, and then they made it back on the software later on. Now, can this industry survive off of that any longer? I don't know. I don't think so. But, so I think it is important for them to make a profit. But if they can't do that without pricing over $1,000, then they should rework what they're doing. But, of course, these things are already set in stone. The ball is already moving on these things. And the fact that Xbox is willing to talk about it already shows me that this is happening within probably 2027 is the right window for that.
Well, to refocus on solely PC for a second, the fact that they're becoming more expensive due to a lot of it being used for data centers.
The GPU shortage.
GPU shortage, RAM shortage.
GPU, CPU?
RAM. RAM's the big one.
It's the RAM shortage. Okay.
Yeah. And the problem is I see almost like this is a coordinated effort because from the little bits we're getting right now, it's going to affect it very similar to a PC. At the same time, personal computing is going to become way more expensive, probably more expensive than this Xbox console. And I think that when you look at the broader market, most people already aren't going to be the type to get the PC parts to go and build their own PC. They'd rather get something just out the box. It's why you have a lot of console sales with the Switch, with the PlayStation 5, to the lesser extent the Xbox. And when you offer a system that's very similar to a PC, it's seemingly going to be cheaper than building your own PC now. Even though in days past it's around the same price. If we're believing the price of around $1,000 to $1,200, that would have been what it would take to build your own PC. And that offers a lot more flexibility.
Maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. Things are changing. Yeah. And I can't help but think it's all intentional, knowing that people are going to be basically pigeonholed into buying this pricey product rather than having a lot more choice and variation in what you want to do as far as a gamer. Pricing is becoming a lot more of a restrictive thing. And especially with wages not going up, specifically in the United States, and the tariffs as well, it almost seems to create a condition that allows for them to make a lot more money.
I think the industry on the business side of things has become too emboldened in how important video games are to people. Because at the end of the day, this is just entertainment, and it's an expensive entertainment hobby. I don't believe people are willing to pay $1,000 for a console. I don't believe people are willing to pay $100 for a video game consistently. There's landmark things that I think, like GTA 6 could probably get away with $100, but only GTA 6. Wolverine couldn't do it. Witcher 4 can't do it.
80 maybe. But
Witcher 4 is probably going to be $80. I would imagine. So
well, you have to reinvest it back in the
right. Yeah. With the Unreal Engine 5 and all that. Anyways,
no.
All
don't
of that
give validity to that. Don't give validity to that. Were you doing that? Were you giving validity to that?
It was a sarcastic one. First of all,
I know
you're a little autistic, Connor, and social cues are not like your best thing. But it's a thing that's happening here. All of that to say, the point that I was driving towards, Connor, is that one thing that I think that they have forgotten is that the crossover from last generation to this one took a long time, and it's still not even really there. And what I mean by the player base moving on and upgrading their tech, I don't believe people are willing to pay that much money. I think they'd much rather just go buy a PlayStation 5. I mean, $600. And go, all right, yeah, that's more in the range of what I was expecting, or a Switch 2, because that's what my kid wants for Pokemon or XYZ things. Like, I already have these offerings here in other places. Like, I don't believe that there is such a hunger for the latest and greatest technology right now because there's not the money for it on the consumer side. We don't have the money for it. Rent is sky high. Groceries are sky high. Gas is now sky high because of our illustrious president's new war.
It's not a war. It's a defensive reactionary action, or whatever defenders have said.
It's a war.
I know. I'm lying. I know.
All right. Anyways, all of that to say, like, the people just don't have the money for it, and even if they do, they don't care enough to spend it on that. Just to see how long it took people to adopt PlayStation 5. This next generation, we've already been talking about, hey, technology-wise, we're not pushing the current hardware to the brinks that we can. Like we could keep going further and further with this one for a while, and we just aren't. And you saw games in the third or fourth year of this generation being ported to last generation hardware. When have you ever seen that happen before? Never. It's never happened before. And so, I think of like Jedi Survivor and how that, I don't know if it ever officially got a PlayStation 4 port, but they were working on that, That didn't used to happen back in the day. So I think most people, you say they're pigeonholed, and maybe they are in the sense of like, well, now it just means I just have to buy this generation of hardware or whatever, or I'm just behind technologically, but like it also just doesn't matter. And I also think the gaming audience has been quite loud enough about, we are not taking advantage of this PlayStation 5, or the sentiment I think amongst the normies is, I don't feel the upgrade from PlayStation 4 to 5. Like it feels the same to me. Now, I think that's a novice take. Like, I felt the difference from 4 to 5. Was it as grand as what I felt from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4? No. But I felt the difference, But I don't blame the normal person for not feeling the difference. And I encourage the normal person to, if consoles and PC parts start breaking your bank like that, don't do it. It's not worth it. As much as I love this medium, as much as I love video games and the art and the way that video games are pushing artistic mediums forward like no other medium of entertainment is right now. Take a shot for every time I've said medium. Like I think video games right now are the trailblazers in narrative storytelling right now. Like, and it's not even close. Like the things that are happening narratively in video games is incomparable to what is happening on the stage, what is happening in movies, what is happening in television, what's happening in music. Like the way that narratives can be crafted in games now today because of where we are technology-wise and the fact that it's an interactive medium could have never been done before. But guess what? It can be done on last generation hardware. It was being done on last generation hardware. When I start looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake, Nier Automata, even you could take it all the way back to Telltale's The Walking Dead.
You can. Last of Us,
Wake 2. Mass Effect, Alan Wake 2 is a great example there.
Control even?
Yeah.
And we'll see how Control Resonant does with that as well.
Exactly. Like, you don't need the latest and greatest technology now. And now, whatever this Project Helix is, I'm interested to see what it's going to be. I'm interested to see what is the package that they're going to sell us. I believe it is going to be cloud streaming focused. I do believe it is too early right now to be the only focus. I think that's probably a generation after this upcoming one is what that is. But we've already seen reports of PlayStation pushing back the PlayStation 6 at least a year to 2028, maybe even later. I think if these companies were going to be smart about this, is leave the cost of console prices alone right now. Don't do price cuts. Don't do any of that. And just try and meet the demand that is out there right now. Now, I understand that's not an exciting thing to say because people like new, and the statistics would probably show that just because they are putting out something new, people will go and buy it. But I don't think it's a good way to secure a base, like an ecosystem in which people will continue to put money into this ecosystem. You know what I mean? I'm very comfortable right now with my PlayStation 5. That's where I, even though I have a PC that plays games pretty well, I have a Switch 2, I have, access to other consoles. I'm just really comfortable on my PlayStation 5, and that's the store I go to first. And it's because PlayStation, for the most part, throughout my entire life, has done right by me. Missteps. Don't get me wrong. There's been some missteps along the way. You think back to the PlayStation 3 generation. You think back to some of the things that they've done this generation. But throughout the PlayStation 2 and throughout the PlayStation 4, they treated me, the consumer, pretty well.
So I guess since you're on that line, I'm thinking right now, it's not a topic that we're covered today, but PlayStation's been testing out a new model for its PlayStation Store of changing prices depending on factors that almost pretty much are beyond our control. It's hard to pin down.
Yeah, it's whatever backdoor numbers that they're seeing, and the word is that the testing is always going to be bringing the price down.
Yeah, and that was the thing, because there was a lot of confusion of like, oh, they're going to raise the prices, when it's clearly that's not what they're planning. But see, you're not shaking your head. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, especially in this day and age where dynamic pricing is becoming a more accepted thing. Specifically at grocery stores is where it started becoming bigger. Kroger, a big store here in Texas as well, they've started just like changing prices and not just to lower them, in fact, to raise them. And so when you start using these kinds of systems, and I believe it was all about AI systems as well, you can't give them the benefit of the doubt. You can't trust them to only do that, especially when it becomes maybe more complicated with if they do increase it to $80. Just like
so
the
I
standard.
think the conversation about it, I think, is just like, and maybe I'm just not up to date on the story, and maybe you are more than me. My understanding of that was that it was not about new games.
Yeah.
New games were going to continue to be at the same price. My understanding was it was going to be the ones that have been out for a few years, and we're going to start looking at just knocking down prices on those.
Yes, it is exactly what it was. But and again, it's only from the perspective of I don't trust them, because they'll say that right now. Because what would the reaction be if they're like, well, actually, sometimes we'll raise the prices above what the market price is, or maybe we'll do something that saying anything that would make people upset right now. It's better just like to soften the blow, to say, oh, we're going to change prices, but only to lower it, and then say, well, certain circumstances where maybe we'll increase them. It's a matter of trust, which they don't deserve.
I get that. It is on the consumer to speak with their wallet.
It is, but that argument's usually been used even all the way up until now.
It would always be used. We live in a capitalist society.
That's the thing. As long as they're making money, even if they see like maybe some people voting with their dollar and not paying for something, as long as they make a profit, that doesn't really matter if you just have a select group of people that are spending that money.
Yes, I understand, but when we live in an age where executives are looking for double-digit ROI, you're not going to get that off of just those select number of people. You know, which is why I think that the PlayStation is also pulling back on releasing their games on PC, is because they've seen that the amount that they're selling on PC isn't worth the cost it takes to port it to PC, but also on top of that, it's lost. They are seeing it as lost sales on hardware. Yeah. And so whatever their number crunching is doing is saying that, like, sure, they're making money, but they weren't making as much money as they could have been if it was just PlayStation exclusive. You know what I'm saying? And I want to jump to Danny in the chat real quick, who says new Mario game can be $100. That's insane. I don't believe that for a second. Even like a Mario Odyssey 2 or 3D Mario games, I don't believe that you could get away with selling a Mario game for $100.
Especially because it's more family oriented. There's going to be a lot of parents that look at that and say, I'm not paying $100 for that.
Right, for my kid?
Yeah.
Danny also said, do you have a Pro? I still have my day one release. No, I don't have a Pro, because I believe the Pro is too expensive. It's certainly too expensive for me and what I am, but also like it's just not offering enough of a jump in quality to justify it. Now, the jump in quality that's there is very, very nice. Well, I can't see it because everything I see is on YouTube, and that's compressed and all these things. But the people who speak on their PS5 Pros say, yo, yeah, it's the real nerdy guys are like, yo, it's fucking incredible what this machine is doing. And that's cool, but that's not everybody. That's a niche group of people. And that's great for them. There's always going to be a niche group of people that's always looking for the newest and the best and the shiniest hardware out there. And by all means, if that's what you're into, go do it. But I think for the normal consumer, and even guys like us who are heavy enthusiasts but don't have all the money in the world to go spending on this stuff, like, we just look at that and go, it's like my phone. Like, I don't buy every iteration of the phone that comes out. There's a lot of people who go, oh, I don't buy odd number iPhones. So like 15, 17, 19. I don't buy those. I buy the even numbers because that I can afford that, and I feel the jump in quality every other generation as opposed to every generation. You know what I'm saying? So it's just stuff like that.
This was an Xbox story, which, I mean, it's funny that it's kind of moved away to more PlayStation, but it's intrinsically linked because they are in the same space. And for as long as we can remember, it's always been Xbox and PlayStation kind of going at it in a way. And Xbox has clearly lost. They've never been able to really recover from that Xbox One days. Yeah. And it's just been getting worse and worse and worse.
I mean, circling back to that, Xbox doesn't have the catalog. It doesn't have the stable of developers. It doesn't have the juice to sell me a $1,200 console. In what the modern lens of what a console is today, which we are still fighting. Like that. Like, I understand. Oh, it's going to be more like a PC. It's going to be cloud streaming. It's going to set you up for the next decade, probably. People can't understand that when it's costing them too much to buy ground beef at the store. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not. It's not the time for that, and it's gonna. I'm not gonna say it's gonna tank the brand, but it's just a bad idea to go down that route.
It is, yeah. And I almost forgot it. I didn't forget it. I almost did forget it. No, back to PlayStation, because you were talking about how they are rolling back rolling back cross-platform. They're not going to put their games on PC anymore.
Yeah.
And I guess to add on to my previous point of them potentially raising prices, either not only just through the manipulation of the marketplace, the PS Store, but also just raising prices of games in general. I see that as a storm of, well, we're making it to where you can only play a chunk of games on PlayStation, and that allows them more room to manipulate prices, because if you can't play it on PC, you have to get it on this PlayStation, so you have to pay whatever price we decide you have to pay for it.
Sure.
And it kind of creates that bit of control, especially now that Xbox isn't as much of a competitor anymore.
I mean, most game sales are digital now.
Yeah.
Like, it was Capcom who said like something like 90 or close to 90% of their sales are all digital. Like just going to the game store to buy that is just like they've cut the middleman out because technology allows for it. Like, people just don't go to stores anymore. So I just see it more as like the GameStop is just the PlayStation store now. So now they can, in order to get more money. Yes, the goal is to get more money out of you. That's what their purpose is, right? But is Joe Blow willing to spend $60 on God of War Ragnarok, or is he ready to spend $45 on God of War Ragnarok? What was the game? What was the game that had the story of like how $7 is really $5?
Yeah. Fuck.
I forget. Look up whatever game that is. But like, basically, the idea behind it is they were playing with their Steam pricing model because they wanted to see what the buying habits of their consumers were, and they found that like in a consumer's brain, $6 is $5, $4 is $5, but $7 is also $5 in the consumer's brain. And it's not until you get to like closer to $9 where it becomes 10 in your brain. That's kind of where I see PlayStation going, where they go, all right, so you're not going to buy Returnal for $60-$70 right now, all right, because that game's a few years old, and it's not new, so it doesn't have the luster. But how can we still sell Returnal to the Joe Blow who's looking to spend a little bit of money right now? Well, will you buy Returnal if it's $42? Will you buy it if it's $41? Will you buy it if it's $35? You know, something like that. It's that A/B testing of like, all right, you didn't do it for this, would you do it for this? If you didn't do it for this, would you do it for this?
And so that originated in a IGN article.
Yeah.
It was the Peak developers.
The Peak? It was Peak, yeah.
Yes, in fact, here's the specific quote, just ripped from the article. Quote, we had this joke of like, how much is a game really? In a player's mind, what does it mean to spend $5? Well, that's $5. But $6? Well, that's still $5. $4 is also kind of $5. $3 is $2, and $2 is basically free. So we've got these tiers, you know, $12, that's $10, but $13 is $15, and we found out that $8 is still $5. It doesn't become $10. $70.99, that's $5, right? So $8 going to $5 is the biggest differential we could find in pricing, so we found it very optimal because they had priced their game at $8.
So it's their way of making more money off the same amount of sales, right? And so this is my point to the point example of the exploring price that PlayStation might be doing here is, at the end of the day, they're still selling Joe Blow Returnal, and Joe Blow didn't buy Returnal previously. That's the ideal thing, you know? But Joe Blow's still out $40, and they've licensed their game to another customer. You know what I'm saying? That is what I see what they're doing. It's the equivalent of back in the day when you and I would take our little $20 to GameStop and see, all right, well, with this $20 I can get, and this is in like 2012, right? So it's like, oh, I can get Devil May Cry 2 and Bulletstorm and Call of Duty 3, and I can get all three of these games for my $20, right? It's just a way of being like, hey, how can we just extort more money? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we sell them the games. It's just we're getting more out of them. That's the whole idea behind it. Yes, it is a way for them to be able to manipulate market prices more, but it's also a benefit to the consumer because now I can buy Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart for $30 instead of $70.
We'll see how it gets better. It's only in the testing phase right now, so we'll see. As we will see with the Xbox Helix as well. Maybe tomorrow.
Connor, we got to move on to our second topic of the day. Oh, and you said, we kept talking about PlayStation. Well, it's because it's the direct competitor, and we are clearly seeing a split in strategy happen. Whereas, like, a year ago, they were a little more aligned. Connor, we're moving on to topic number 2, my first penny of the day. Nintendo sues the U.S. over tariffs. Japanese gaming company Nintendo sues the United States government over its 2025 tariffs in a Friday complaint. to the U.S. Court of International Trade. The complaint targets numerous individuals within the administration of current President Donald Trump, including Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer, Protection Commissioner Rodney Scott, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and
pedophile.
There you go. And the recently fired Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem.
Noem. Be respectful towards her.
No.
She kills dogs. That's a good thing, I think. Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta figure out where the line is on your dry humor.
Well, she killed dogs.
I understand. Yes, I know you're joking, but the people don't know you're joking. All right?
It's their fault.
Relevant departments were also listed, including the U.S. Department of the Treasury, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Office of the United States Trade Representative, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and the U.S. Department of Commerce. Quote, this action concerns defendants' initiation and administration of unlawful trade measures that have, to date, resulted in the collection of more than $200 billion in tariffs on imports from nearly all countries, writes Nintendo's lawyers. February saw the conservative-leaning U.S. Supreme Court strike down Trump's tariffs implemented using the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act in a 6-3 ruling that declared the tariffs unconstitutional. Judge Richard Eaton of the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled last Wednesday that companies like Nintendo who paid the tariffs are entitled to refunds. U.S. Customs and Border Protection reports that between January 20th and December 15th, 2025, they'd, quote, collected more than $200 billion in tariffs thanks to more than 40 executive orders put in place by President Donald Trump's administration. In August of last year, Nintendo raised prices on Nintendo Switch accessories while floating the possibility of a Nintendo Switch 2 price hike, while previously pre-orders were temporarily delayed to, quote, assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo is demanding the tariffs be refunded with interest, although in-depth details are currently unknown. Listen, this is not surprising to me, really, at all. If someone's going to go after some litigation in order to get their bag, it's going to be Nintendo. And when they go after major governments like this, especially ones so rife with corruption and so obviously like extorting the normal person out of their money, I really don't have any problems with this.
No,
now, is this just so that other corporate heads can also put more money in their pockets? Yes, but I don't know. I don't like that guy. So sure, go ahead, do it. Guy I also don't like, but I like more than this guy. So, you know.
Well, the problem is the tariffs were not only unconstitutional, they were just a bad idea.
It was
in the first
awful.
place. It was all, and you still had a lot of people saying,
and
oh,
these dumb
good.
motherfuckers elected him for it.
Exactly. And the problem is that they, of course, they were always saying it's going to come back to us. We're going to make a bunch of money, but this is what happens when you have ridiculously stupid economic policies. There's a number of ways you can get blowback, like in the form of a lawsuit. Nintendo usually are the bad guys when we talk about stories like this. Usually,
well, they're usually going after fucking Joe Blow with a brick and mortar shop themed after a Pokemon store or something. Like
maybe they ran an emulator. Now you need to pay for the rest of your life. You need to be in chains, in bondage. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with this at all, and it's a good way to. I say it's a good way to show that your policies are bad, but I don't think it'll have the intended effect. It'll be like turned around to Nintendo's being predatory or something like that by its supporters who like them. And, I don't know how this is going to end at all. I'm not a lawfully minded person.
I think Nintendo's going to get their money.
Oh, I think they are. There were some other companies like Costco that were also suing the government. I think we're going to see a big payout that's going to completely eradicate any of the benefits or the proposed benefits that would come from instituting these tariffs.
And who's it all going to fall back on, Connor?
Us.
Yes. Man, it's so great to live here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's not really much else I can personally say about this story besides, hey, get ready for high gas prices and for, having your taxpayer dollars go to paying off lawsuits like this one.
Oh, man. And I imagine we're going to get a repeat of this story either in 6 months to another year or two because, of course, as soon as the Supreme Court struck down Trump's tariffs, he immediately retaliated with another one. So I expect this pretty much exact same story to happen again a year from now. Welcome to the games industry, man. I want to put out, Danny earlier asked if GTA 6 can be played on the normal PS5. I can guarantee you it will.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you it will. It would be
Kinda-
ridiculous if it couldn't.
Yeah, they need to make
They
people are
need
gonna
to
buy
make
their games. They need to make their money.
they need to make money. So yeah, is it going to be like the best version of GTA 6? Probably not, but like it'll be GTA 6. People won't be able to tell the difference. Moving on to topic number 3. This is going to be my second penny of the day. Battlefield 6 teams hit with layoffs despite biggest launch in franchise history. It's worth noting the last story and the next story was written by our very own Connor Elliott over at Substack, TwoPennyGamesNews.substack.com, where you can read our own articles there. But this is I say breaking news. This is news from today, so we didn't have time to write the story, and we are pulling from who is this? This is
The Verge.
The Verge, written by Andrew Webster. Even a record-breaking launch can't seem to save developers from layoffs, according to a report from IGN. The various teams behind Battlefield 6 have been hit with unspecified numbers of layoffs. That includes staff at EA Studios Criterion, DICE, Ripple Effect, and Motive. God damn it, Motive again.
Yep.
All of which contributed to the game. In a statement to The Verge, EA confirmed the news but did not clarify the number of developers impacted. Quote, "We've made select changes within our Battlefield organization to better align our teams around what matters most to our community," the ones that make the most money. Justin Higgs, EA VP Corporate Communications, said, quote, "Battlefield remains one of our biggest priorities, and we're continuing to invest in the franchise guided by player feedback and insights from Battlefield Labs." Battlefield 6 launched last October with huge expectations, and at least initially it seemed to meet them. EA called the game, quote, "the biggest launch in franchise history," citing 7 million copies sold in just 3 days. God damn. It was also a particularly ambitious attempt to go up against the juggernaut that is Call of Duty, with EA creating a 4-studio team to develop the game. However, Battlefield 6 appears to be yet another victim of the outsized expectations placed on live service games as publishers seek out the long-term revenue of games like Fortnite, despite the brutal competition. Last month, another EA studio, Full Circle, the developer behind the live service reboot of Skate, was also hit with layoffs. And Skate is also currently like about to do like their last update or whatever. So Skate, the Skate reboot is guarantee you probably shut down within the next 6 months. We also got news this last week that High Guard from Light Studios, which recently laid off the majority of its team. High Guard, the game, is shutting down March 12th, 13th, something like that. So something's in the water. And it's corporate greed. It always has been and always will be.
I always remember, I don't know why I go to it, but it's always Spider-Man 2. Because that was one of the biggest games of its year, and it got layoffs pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
And when they were also in the process of making a new game that's from the release of 2 to Wolverine isn't that far of a gap. And so the fact that you can make profit, just like this Battlefield 6 did, and it's a game that has something beyond the horizon, especially with this one, because, I mean, we're in the age of where a multiplayer game doesn't just drop, and then that's how it is forever. It constantly has updates. It has new maps, maybe new weapons, all different sorts of things added. And rather than double down on that and try to have as much of the workforce, work towards actually getting that to be alive for the next couple of years, short-term profit. We can save some money by cutting these people, so we're going to do exactly that. It doesn't matter how effectively you work. It doesn't matter how well your game does or how much money it earns your bosses. Your job is on the line just because, as you said, it's corporate greed. Enough is never enough. We've seen it with the Epstein files that money just corrupts you to the absolute worst, to the point where you're willing to sexually assault children and take part in trafficking operations.
I don't think that's why they wanted to sexually assault children, but okay.
No, but it's the idea of money corrupts so much that you just it's never enough. It always leaves a hole.
What was the XQC quote? Not that I like quoting XQC of the "there's nothing to do in game."
Yeah, exactly. And the worst part, he's right.
That's funny. That's a really
right.
funny thing to say. I mean, there's so much to do in game. It's just what they choose to do.
And these people, the game is never really ending. It's always the next thing to profit off of, and they don't care about consumers, except for how to squeeze as much money out of them as possible and make it to where they're not leaving them every single time because they're making bad decisions, and to just consolidate the industry itself, whether it's by expanding more into AI for the purpose of replacing jobs or just getting rid of people that are trying to unionize, which happened fairly recently with, it was that they unionized and then they said, oh, well, we actually had to lay off people, and so sad. It was a decision that was made beforehand, so it wasn't because of the union,
Oh,
but
ringing
it definitely was.
Was it like a Bethesda thing or something? No,
I'm gonna look while
it couldn't have
I'm gonna
been.
look
Anyways,
real quick because it's
I think the problem right now is just the expectations of when money is coming back in on these projects. And I think the executive C-suite and the people in charge of these conversations just expect the money to be rolling in right away as soon as they do it. They expect, oh, the game will launch and it'll be like Fortnite and we'll make all this money and so forth. And that's just not the case. There's only so many Fortnites that can be in the world. And right now there's two. It's Fortnite and it's Call of Duty. And even Call of Duty isn't really doing Fortnite numbers like that.
No, it is not.
You know? And so you're just left with all of these games that never had a shot of producing those types of results, and the expectations are just wildly out of place from reality. And, you know, it's not affecting these people who make these decisions. It's affecting the workers and the artists who are actually crafting the work that is going to be able to make these people that much money and so forth. So, I see it as like it's just not a good time to put out a game with that type of formula right now because of all of the outstanding situations, the lack of RAM, the cost of living, the lack of wages going up and so forth, like the state of inflation right now. Like everything is just too expensive to be going down this route. But even if you were going to go down this route, you need to start smaller and have a slow grind of expectations. I like to look at Warframe and what Warframe has been able to do for the last decade, right? Decade? Yeah, last decade. Where it's like they started very, very small. And granted, they're not the biggest guy on the block, but they've gotten bigger and bigger. And like it's one of those, oh shit, I moved a rock and there's a whole ant colony down here, you know? Like you need to have a game. It doesn't need to be the prettiest game in the world, but it needs to have a gameplay loop that is attracting people. It needs to have a level of uniqueness to it that people haven't seen before. And it needs to meet price expectations for what a player can expect from their. I mean, Warframe was free to play, but from their $20, from their $40, if you choose to go down that route, like an Arc Raiders or something like that has. But now Arc Raiders is being criticized because they're not dropping content updates as quickly as
always a battle.
It's always a battle, right? Always a battle with the content updates with these types of games, and those cost money to make. You got to pay people, and I think it just leads to this thing of like, man, you have to slowly grind away and build your fan base. And you also have to learn to admit that, like, hey, just because you have a dedicated fan base, it doesn't mean that you can expand. It doesn't mean you can get bigger. It doesn't mean you can, give us the biggest and baddest update yet. Sometimes some shit just got to be regular,
Yes. To your point, another studio that you're very fond of, Housemarque. They've really expanded their games that they're making with Returnal and now with Soros, but then you go back to their other games, Resogun, smaller games that built up their skills, built up connections, I would assume, and then they can make hard-hitting games.
Housemarque has been around for a long, long time, and the inflation that they got from working with PlayStation so closely, that they got through Returnal and now through Soros, does make me nervous for Housemarque.
It does, yeah.
But I'm hopeful that it has been the appropriate amount of growth. I also like to look at Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch has been about the same size the whole time. There was an increase during the PS3 generation when they were working on Infamous, but they have not wildly grown out of control and are suddenly a 200-person team like a Naughty Dog, or a 300-person team like a Naughty Dog and a Santa Monica Studios, right?
And they want to keep it that way.
They want to keep it that way. They want to try their best to keep sub 100 because, it doesn't make for the best games, but the fans love it, Ghost of Yotei and Ghost of Tsushima are not the best games ever, but they're good enough, and the normies love them, and they sell aesthetic, and they execute on creative vision on a way to where it's just like, you can't just replicate that, right? That's talent. That's real hard work talent earned through years of working in your medium and grinding out these things. So, like, it's the layered practice of, all right, well, we started with this little rocket robot on wheels, and then we got to Sly Cooper, and then we got to Infamous, and then we got to Ghost, and the slow leveling up that Sucker Punch has done throughout those years is on their talent level. Like they've been rewarded for that, but look how long it took. Sly Cooper was always the underrated PlayStation mascot of the PlayStation 2, right? Infamous got some attention on the PlayStation 3, but really only to the PlayStation 3 audience. It didn't hit mainstream appeal like an Uncharted or a Last of Us ever did, right? Ghost of Tsushima did. Ghost of Tsushima won Player Vote of the Year at the Game Awards over The Last of Us Part 2, over Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those are not small titles to beat, and they won, right? And
Catch a wide net, you'll catch a lot of fish.
I'm saying. And so Tsushima and Yote prove to me that the slow grind works with everything. Everything. If you keep working, you're consistent, you have a message, you have a vision, and you stay consistent and driving towards that vision, you'll get there one day.
Last example, Hazelight. They've kind of just upped their game, not as markedly as the ones we mentioned before, but they started off with their, your interactive game that had a lot of rough edges.
Yeah.
And then they just cleaned up their act.
A Brother's A Way Out. Yeah. And then It Takes Two took it to another level, and by all accounts, Split Fiction is an even more polished product, right? So, again, you're looking at the smaller guys and seeing what they're doing and saying, this used to be everybody. So why can't we get back to this?
And on posterity,
and it's not like Ghost of Yote was ugly. It wasn't the most pretty game in the world, but it met that with such great artistic vision and style that it fools you into thinking it's prettier than it is.
Yeah. For posterity, the whole bit I was saying about the union that formed that got quickly laid off, that studio was for Rockstar, one of their UK offices. So again, the whole entire theme of
you're not talking the one with the leaked leaked Discord messages.
Yeah,
where
that's the one.
That's what you're talking about?
That's the justification they gave for
No, the justification was because they were talking about NDA stuff.
Oh, yeah.
To their union rep, but it wasn't. They didn't get fired because of the union thing. I think you're talking about two different stories.
Yeah, maybe I am. But either way, the point is that they're anti-union because there's two stories you can bring in and get
Rockstar, Rockstar is anti-union.
But games in general, the games industry is very anti-union.
Yes.
And it takes away power, so when these kinds of things happen, where even though your game is successful by all measures, you still get laid off. It's just like, you go fuck yourself, is basically the message to the game developers of the world right now.
We need another Infamous, says Danny. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, baby. Another Infamous. Connor, take us away with our final topic of the day, your second penny of the day. Go ahead, my friend.
Sure. My final penny, my second penny, is that Infamous will never get a sequel. It is not viable anymore.
Fuck yourself. I don't want a sequel. I just want a remaster collection. Why can't I play them on the modern hardwares? What's going on?
That would be smarter because then you can get people to want to play it. It's been so long.
Those are great games. Yeah, I know you like shitting on me because it's me, but those are really fantastic games.
When I ever said they weren't.
Nah, you're talking shit.
You're just in your head about things.
You're talking shit.
Final story, though, actually. NetEase to cut funding of Yakuza creators' new studio. Bloomberg reports Chinese video game publisher NetEase will in May cease to fund Nagoshi Studio and its recently announced title, Gang of Dragon. Employees at Nagoshi Studio, including a spokesperson from NetEase, confirmed the decision this past Friday, leaving the studio's founder, Toshihiro Nagoshi, to scramble for financial backers with no success thus far. NetEase's reason for canceling funding came when it was discovered Gang of Dragon requires around 7 billion yen, that's $44.4 million, in additional funding to finish the game. NetEase has begun pulling support from overseas studios, like when it laid off a number of employees at a Marvel Rivals development team in Seattle, and with Jar of Sparks, a studio formed by Halo veteran Jerry Hook that was forced to search for a new publisher once NetEase pulled their funding. GamesBeat journalist Dean Takahashi reported in February of last year that NetEase would begin pulling overseas supports, emboldened by successes like Black Myth Wukong, that Chinese-based developers are more viable than in days past. Stephen Totio at GameFile echoed Takahashi's I messed that up. Echo Takahashi, with one particular source disclosing the company's, quote, plans to divest itself of the majority of its overseas teams, end quote. Other Japanese developers like Suda51's Grasshopper Manufacture have been affected by NetEase's business plan, who, despite being owned by the publisher, self-published their 2026 game, Romeo is a Dead Man. Quote, they're still our parent company, Suda51 told Video Game Chronicles' Chris Scullion. They're still around, but we will be self-publishing it, with some assistance, mainly up until recently from them. I'd like to make sure this gets across, though. We currently plan on continuing as a NetEase first-party studio, end quote. NetEase warns the studio it will lose the, quote, brands or assets, end quote, if they're unable to pay the cost of releasing the game, although NetEase notes they're open to discussions if Nagoshi Studio is able to buy itself out. Gang of Dragon, starring Ma Dong-suk, I think that is, was only just revealed at the 2025 Game Awards last December to great appeal, but the game's future is uncertain. We just got news of this. It looked awesome. The response was, it looked fucking awesome. It was that
This is the one with like the bigger dude.
the big guy who's doing all those cool
yeah,
ass,
that game did look
like,
cool.
punching moves.
Yeah.
And it's like spiritual successor to Yakuza, so it
Yeah.
got that fan base on there, as well as people who are a fan of that actor. He was great in Train to Busan. He was in Marvel, what's that bad one? The one you watched?
Eternals.
Eternals, yeah, but apparently he was fine in that one. Either way, he's a good actor.
No, the cast was not the problem in Eternals.
The guy it was the everything else.
I mean, I think Eternals gets a bad rap. It's not a good movie, but it
Yeah.
gets a bad rap.
Mhm.
Like, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's just not good.
No, it's not
Yeah.
good.
But
It's more than anything. It's just boring.
Mhm.
You know, and sometimes that's the greatest sin of them all.
it is.
You know?
It really is.
But it's not that bad.
This is bad though. This
This is unfortunate. This is really saddening.
I know it's what NetEase has been planning for a bit now.
I feel like there's
occasion.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
You're good.
Occasionally, there's just episodes where you see the news age me in real time. You know, where I'm just
Great.
like, okay, yeah. Those lines on my face weren't there a year ago. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue. I'm sorry.
Well, we know NetEase has been changing their business model because of the success in China. But the fact that they just pull the rug out from under people when there's money behind it, I mean, again, people are excited for this game. Well, you're talking next time, I'll go look up the YouTube account, but I'm pretty sure it was pretty high. Either way, even from just that one little trailer, it got people interested. And then just for the purpose of trying to consolidate your company in random ways that don't really make sense to anybody except probably the people that run the company, it's just always something. It's always something. It's even if it's not just direct layoffs, it's like layoffs on the horizon. In fact, a whole studio possibly closing down. Because even if for some reason Nagoshi Studio is able to survive this event, Gang of Dragon much less likely has the chance to do so. Because they can't do anything if they don't have a funding secured by a deadline, which, I mean, it's always scummy. When you pull the rug out from under people's feet and then you put extra pressure on them to fix the problem themselves, it's just like, why'd you get this studio funded anyway? Well, what's the point? It's that idea of just so many people like Embracer Group, for example, buying up all these studios and then just tossing them in the trash at the first sign of trouble or the first sign of they can make some kind of money by maybe doing a tax write-off. It just... Again, it's just over and over and over again, these kinds of stories hit our radar, and we got to talk about them, and we just kind of shrug our shoulders and go, well, get used to it, because we're going to cover a story possibly next week where the same thing's going to happen.
Yeah, again, I think NetEase, who was formerly a mobile game studio or a mobile game publisher for like iPhone games and stuff, took a big swing with Marvel Rivals, and I think for the most part it worked out. But I don't think they were ready for the financial pressures that came with AAA development, or whatever level of development you want to call this. Good, I hesitate to call it AAA, but it's higher cost of investment in all of these things. So I just don't think that they were ready for that, and it feels like they sort of overextended themselves, and they want every single game to be the amount of success that Wukong gave them.
Yes,
and you just don't get those all the time, And I think. I'm curious as to the long-standing success of Wukong, because that felt a little bit like lightning in a bottle to me, because of the Chinese pride that you saw follow behind that game. Can they replicate that for the sequel? Can they replicate that for a new IP? I don't know. We'll see.
I might be counting your eggs before they hatch.
Exactly. I think that's kind of the problem, and I think that's why this happened here, is because they were expecting it, and then someone probably should have called them and told them how much a Yakuza sells. Which, not bad, and certainly more in more recent years, but you're not going to off the bat get the crazy return on investment that you want on it. And again, I think it's another example. NetEase is doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, is nobody's willing to grind and build slowly. They want their money now. And I get it. The temptation for money now is grand, especially when the $sign amount, it doesn't matter. The $sign amount isn't going to change. It's just whether I get it in 2 decades or today. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you always want it today. But, yeah, this is not how you treat people. This is not how you treat creatives. You're souring your relations, not unlike how Embracers soured their relations, right? And so I struggle to see how NetEase is going to secure themselves as a major publisher in this industry over the next 5 years.
I had heard a rumor, it might not even be a rumor, it just might be fact, but it was on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, where how the CEO of NetEase originally was trying to push for Marvel Rivals to not be like a Marvel-based game, but like an original... thing with original characters and such.
Wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It's like, dude, are you an idiot? That's not as surefire of a hit as Marvel characters, especially seeing.
But I mean, Overwatch worked. So
yeah, but that's again, in the moment.
But,
so many people have tried to replicate Overwatch, and
Yeah.
they've never been able to do it.
right, and it was all like, who you are matters.
Yeah.
You know, Blizzard, new IP, this is World of Warcraft people, this is StarCraft people, you know, new IP, Overwatch, it's a first-person shooter, and it's this new take on what a first-person shooter can be. That's more exciting than everybody else in the field, right, inherently. The Marvel IP took them to the heights that they went to, and, you know, they had layoffs shortly after that, like the September following that, which was unfortunate to read because it was another example of it doesn't matter how successful you are, there's just not enough money to go around in this industry right now because costs are so high.
Yep.
And so we really need to, again, as an industry, both on the development side, the production side, and on the consumer side, we need to reset expectations. Consumers, gamers, need to learn that the level that we're at right now is not sustainable, and we need to be more forgiving when games don't look like The Last of Us Part 2, or they don't look like whatever else you want. And I think gamers can be distracted by great mechanics and great feeling gameplay. I think Arc Raiders is an example of that. Arc Raiders isn't like the best looking game on the market. It looks good. You know,
but multiplayer games don't really need that.
They don't need that, right? And so it's the game loop that is keeping them interested and keeping them logged in. And we'll see what happens with Marathon, because Marathon does seem to have a base. Will they be able to capitalize on that base is the next question. And how long will the base stick around? And was it worth all of the money that we dumped into it in order to attain whatever size base this is? This is what we'll see in the next 6 months with Marathon.
Yeah, and we'll see.
This sucks. If this means the game gets canceled, that's really unfortunate, because like, even though I'm not the biggest Yakuza guy, I am interested whenever a new one comes out just to check the temperature and see what people are saying about it. But this one had my attention. This is one that I remembered from the Game Awards and the slew of trailers that we got.
Yeah.
I remember the violence in juxtaposition of the level of violence that we normally get from Yakuza, which is not a high amount of violence in terms of like blood. Or like you were shooting people with guns and they were dying.
Until the man with no name.
Yes? I don't know.
That's the other game.
But also, like, the big burly
Straight from
dude
heaven?
invited a different type of beat-em-up experience that, like, Yakuza doesn't provide. So I was very much interested in the tone that they were setting with this one. So I hope all works out, but we'll have to see.
By the way, I was talking about Stranger Than Heaven. My bad. It's the one in 1940s, I think. And it's like the guy who's like...
But that was different, wasn't it? Oh, no, it was RGG, but it was... Okay, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for your episode of the Two Penny Games Cast. Make sure you drop a comment down below about all of today's topics or something that maybe we missed this week. Let us know how you're feeling about the ever-shifting winds of this fucking industry. And make sure you check out the Resident Evil Requiem review live on the YouTube channel now, youtube.com/@2pennygames. And make sure you follow us over on Twitch, twitch.tv/2pennygames. And until next time, have a great time. Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Bye.